What's up, y'all? It's Carla, aka Sila the Poet. How's everybody doing today? I hope everybody's doing well. Happy Monday. I'm here on my vacation day, and I decided that I would get on today and talk about deconstruction. So, deconstructing Christianity. So, I've been deconstructing the religious aspect of the faith that I believe in for the last couple of years. I took a deep dive into Christian history and found out some stuff. And so it causes me to look at religion and faith in a different light. So when I was doing my research on Christian history, I found out some facts that kind of changed my mind towards the way I see the religious part of Christianity. So I'm going to read you something. All right. So there was a man named James Henry Thornwell. He was a Harvard-educated scholar, a Christian theologian, a slave owner, and a Southern patriot. And he was looked at in his time as one of the, respected white theologians, Christian theologians, and he defended and promoted slavery and white supremacy. He was the senior pastor of the First Presbyterian Church in Columbia, South Carolina. This is a quote from one of his 1861 sermons. As long as the African race in its comparative degradation coexists side by side with the white, bondage is its normal condition. He said that his fellow Christians did not need to feel guilty about enslaving other human beings. The relation of master and slave stands on the same foot with the other relations of life. In itself, it is not inconsistent with the will of God. It is not sinful. So, and then he continues to say that the Christian scriptures not only failed to condemn it, but they distinctly sanctioned slavery as any other social condition of man. So when I read that, I was just very, very appalled. And I realized that, here was a religious leader taking the Bible out of context, twisting the Bible to fit what he wanted to do. But he was sinning. Because you're not supposed to degrade and, treat other human beings like property. Okay, there's nothing in the Bible that says that you're supposed to do that. I also looked up another Christian figure named Henry Lyons Jr. He was the former president of the Alabama Baptist Convention. Okay? And here's a quote that he spoke before the local White Citizens Council. I'm trying to see if I wrote the year here, but I don't see the year here. But I'm still going to state what he stated. Okay? He basically was denouncing the civil rights because back then there were a lot of people protesting for civil rights. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, for 15 years I have had the privilege of being a pastor of a white Baptist church in this city. If we stand 100 years from now, it will still be a white church. I am a believer in the separation of the races, and I am nonetheless a Christian. And the crowd applauded. If you want to get into a fight with the one that started the separation of races, then you come face to face with our God. So you have here another white Christian leader who was basically prominent back then from down south, basically, co-signing white supremacy and, co-signing the hierarchy of race, and co-signing Jim Crow and co-signing segregation. Okay? And another thing that he also stated is that, here's a quote that he also said, is that we stand on the sacred soil of Alabama in the cradle of the Confederacy of our beloved Southland. Okay, so yeah, this type of stuff, you know, the racism and the twisting of religion and scriptures to propagate, you know, something that is so evil and so, you know, immoral. I just can't look at those white theologians and those white leaders with any respect. I just can't. Okay? There was also another figure named Billy Sunday. Billy accepted larger than average donations from the KKK at revivals in Tennessee, Mississippi, Indiana, and Louisiana from the years of 1922 to 1925. And in Richmond, Indiana, the KKK showed up in full regalia at his church. I think not, I'm sorry, at, I think, a revival, they showed up. So when you have religion, right, something that's supposed to be religion, crossing with racism, crossing with white supremacy, you know, being entangled in such a way that there's no separation, we have every right to question it, especially if the people that propagate that type of religion, they're people that basically teach religion and teach the faith. It can be very dangerous because some of the ideas that they're giving are unethical, immoral, and unbiblical. Okay? You know, that's why when people say, well, context matters. The context in which the Bible is understood and analyzed is important. Context can be influenced by man's biases, man's prejudice, and man's culture. So if you have a Western European culture that may be racist or may be, you know, prejudiced or whatever, and your context of how you interpret scripture and your context with how you teach religion is going to be tainted, right? So these are just some of the things, like I said, that I found out. And this is part 1, and I'm going to do a part 2. Okay? So part 1 of one of the many reasons why I deconstruct. I'll come back with part 2. Peace.